Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my channel. Today, we are going to discuss the famous interview question, the difference between Spring and Spring Boot. I'm going to tell you few details so that you can answer the same thing in the interview. Spring has this basic feature called inversion of controller, which means the classes that you create, Spring is going to handle those classes. It's going to create objects for those classes and manage those objects and destroy those objects. So that is a configuration available from the Spring. And in the Spring Boot, that IOC is available. Plus on the top of that, auto configuration is available. Auto configuration means the status that you put in your Maven project or Gradle project will be compiled and those charts will be downloaded in the backend and those charts will be put in your class path. Technically, those libraries will be available for your project by using auto configuration. This auto configuration is not available in Spring, but it's available in Spring Boot. Second, embedded servers. This embedded server support is not available in Spring, but it's available in Spring Boot. Means by default, few servers by default available at Spring Boot. Internal, no need to specify these servers. I will tell you those servers soon. And in the Spring, we have the support for basic web-based applications, MVC architecture applications, and no web starters. No starter support available at Spring. But in Spring Boot, starter support is available. Starter is nothing but those dependencies we configure in the Maven or Gradle file. By default, those jars, target jars, dependent jars will be by default downloaded and available through starters, through auto configurations. If you put any starter in the Maven through auto configurations, those jars and dependent jars will be downloaded. When you are dealing with the starters like JWC or JPA jars as well as connection pool jars, additional jars will be downloaded rather specifying explicitly by default automatically it will be downloaded. Those called additional jars. And in Spring, actuator support is not available, but Spring Boot actuator support is available. Actuator means we can check the health of a project by accessing actuators. We need to enable those actuators from properties file. That's a configuration thing. But in short, actuators are not available at Spring. Spring Boot level actuators are available. We have more control on application. What is the configuration? What is the pin health of a project? Additional details, which Java we are using, dash dash dash. And in Spring, earlier in Spring, we used to configure these pins in XML. Slowly, they gave the configuration through Java, but in Spring, we cannot 100% create pins without XML. Partially can be done, but not 100%. But in Spring Boot, without XML, you can configure your pins. So 100% Java code. We will not write any XMLs for the bean configuration in Spring Boot. Yeah, as I said, we need to configure external servers in Spring, but Spring Boot by default those servers will be available, which are called embedded servers. Tomcat and Jetty both are available by default Spring Boot. You can straight away use them. Spring may not be that much faster compared to Spring Boot when we compare the speed. And security wise, it has more feature compared to Spring. Spring Boot has more securities. And Spring doesn't support YAML, but Spring Boot has this YAML support. In Spring, okay, sometimes we want to access a particular property value from the application.properties file. What we'll use, we use @value annotation. But if you want to inject a bunch of bulk value import, what we use configuration properties annotation. That annotation is not available in Spring. That is available in Spring Boot. And in Spring, there is nothing called Spring Boot application annotation. But in Spring Boot, we have Spring Boot application annotation. Is a combination of component scan, enable auto configuration, and auto configuration annotations. And in Spring, mostly we use for the smaller scale of applications, but in Spring Boot, we will use for larger development applications, enterprise applications, we use Spring Boot. So these are the details. If he can present in the interview, mostly he will be satisfied. So so please go through this video, go through the notes. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you very much.